Haven Arrest Missionary Baptist Church presents Union Gospel Presses Sunday School Lesson Number 1, start of the fall quarter, September 6, 2020. The lesson is entitled, God Provides Manna and Quail. Lesson text comes from Exodus chapter 16, verses 2 through 15. Related scriptures are 1 Corinthians 10, 1 through 10, Exodus 6, 1 through 8, John 6, 30 through 58, Numbers 11, 4 through 34. The place is Wilderness of Sin, and the time is 1445 BC. As we begin to teach the concept of God's preparation of the Israelite nation, remember that they had just been delivered from generations of slavery in Egypt. As a people, they had been told what to do and how to think for generations. All their traditional norms, standards, and values had probably been forgotten. Slaveholders would foster this lack of cohesion as a people to quash the cultural pride of the enslaved, making rebellion less likely. It is likely that no real sense of culture or commonality remained in Israel's experience. They now functioned, or rather misfunctioned, as a mob. God had to teach them how to follow him and how to follow his appointed leader, Moses. They had to be taught morals, ethics, and values. The Israelites needed to become a functional society that could reflect their sovereign's character. We would not even know where to start. Fortunately, God did. In this quarter, we will follow the story of how the Lord instructed and molded his people. We may also learn more about how to function as a local church. Today's aim, facts. To see that the Lord provides for the needs of his people. Principle, to understand how God taught his children to obey him. Application, to personally learn obedience from God in our life. Illustrating the lesson. God's children can walk in obedience as he provides for their needs. Practical points. 1. Grumbling companions will test good character, possibly revealing character faults. Exodus 16:2. 2. Trust God in trials, remembering what he has already done for you. Verse 3. 3. God's provision is not limited by man's circumstances. Verses 4 through 5. 4. The Lord is merciful despite our sin, but we should not murmur against him or his leaders. Verses 6 through 7. 5. God often reveals his glory most clearly in times of adversity. Verses 9 through 10. 6. As God provides, he reminds believers that he is who he says he is and does what he says he will do. Verses 11 through 12. 7. God is faithful to meet his people's spiritual and physical needs. Verses 13 through 15. Golden text. Jesus said unto them, I am the bread of life. He that cometh to me shall never hunger, and he that believeth on me shall never thirst. John 6:35. Today we have 3 lesson outlines. The first is the people's complaint, coming from Exodus 16, 2 through 13. The second is the Lord's response, coming from Exodus 16, 4 through 8. The third is the Lord's provision, Exodus 16, 9 through 15. Introduction. Years ago, my young son complained to me about the fact that it was raining when he wanted to play outside. In fact, to hear him say it, it always rained when he was free to go outside. I asked him, who are you complaining to? I suggested that if anyone was responsible, it was God. At that point, his complaining stopped, at least until the next time it rained. Adults are often just as childish in their responses to difficulties. How many times do we hear others, even ourselves, complain about the cost of different products, the long line at the DMV, or even the weather? The truth is, we all tend to respond automatically to circumstances without thinking. All we see is the problem rather than the God who is greater than our problem. Much less we do trust that He is using the problem to achieve His purposes. We can fault the Israelites for their constant complaining, but we should consider that they are a mirror to us. The people's complaint, Exodus 16:2. And the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. Verse 3. And the children of Israel said unto them, Would to God we had died by the hand of the Lord in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the flesh pots, and when we did eat bread to the full. For ye have brought us forth into this wilderness to kill this whole assembly with hunger. Over several months, the Israelites had witnessed 10 miraculous plagues pour out on the land of Egypt. It was through these divine judgments that God brought about the release of the captive Israelites. Their final deliverance occurred at the Red Sea when the Lord preserved them and destroyed the mighty Egyptian army. Now finally and fully free of the Egyptians, the Israelites headed into the wilderness. Only 3 days after their song of praise at the Red Sea, 15:1-2, they found themselves without drinking water and murmured against Moses, verses 23-24. In response to Moses' plea, the Lord miraculously provided water and then led the multitude to an oasis, verses 25-27. This would become a pattern for the Israelite nation in the wilderness. They would face trying situations in this desert land, just as one might expect, and they would repeatedly murmur and complain against Moses and Aaron, and ultimately against the Lord. As the Israelites traveled southward on the Sinai Peninsula toward Mount Sinai, they came to an area known as the Wilderness of Sin, 16:1. This barren land offered little in the way of food and water, and it was now 1 month after they had left Egypt. Exodus 16:2 tells us the whole congregation began to complain against Moses and Aaron. Their complaint concerned a lack of food, verse 3, and the growing hunger apparently affected everyone. Now, a month into their journey, the food they had brought with them from Egypt apparently had been largely depleted. In stating their lack of contentment with the situation, the people said it would have been better for them to die in Egypt by the hand of the Lord than to starve in the wilderness. The plagues were probably in their minds. They had been spared from the plagues, but in retrospect, they thought it would have been better to die from them than to come all the way out into the wilderness to suffer and die there. Thus, they claimed they would have preferred being victims at God's hand in Egypt to being the recipients of so many miracles and all this hardship. The people said they sat by the flesh pots in Egypt, verse 3, suggesting they had never lacked for food there. While they may have embellished their memory somewhat, there is no reason to believe they did not have enough to eat in Egypt, since they had raised cattle and sheep there. 9:4-7, 10:9. They had brought those animals with them, but at least two factors weighed against slaughtering them for food now. First, the very fact that they were on the move would have made the slaughtering and preparation and preserving of the meat very difficult. Second, the short-term benefit of having meat would have detracted from the long-term benefit of having milk and cheese from these animals. Sadly, the people charged Moses and Aaron with deliberately bringing them into the wilderness to die of hunger there. It is instructive to notice what this hardship did to these people. It caused them to lose all perspective. Suddenly, they now saw their time in Egypt as the good old days. Now, rather than being thankful for their deliverance, they turned on their deliverer and impugned his and Aaron's motives. Their charge was ludicrous on the face of it. For what motive could Aunt Moses and Aaron have had for wanting the people to die in the wilderness, especially after all they had gone through to get them out of Egypt? There is an important lesson here for us. When we take our eyes off the Lord and focus on our problems, we lose our perspective. We usually seek someone to blame, we wallow in self-pity, and we ultimately accomplish nothing worthwhile. Problems should cause us to refocus on the Lord, trusting and praising Him, knowing that there is a divine purpose in everything. Romans 5:3-5. The Lord's response, verse 4. Then said the Lord unto Moses, Behold, I will rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them whether they will walk in my law or no. Verse 5. And it shall come to pass that on the 6th day they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. Verse 6. And Moses and Aaron said unto all the children of Israel, At even then ye shall know that the Lord hath brought you out from the land of Egypt. Verse 7. And in the morning then ye shall see the glory of the Lord, for that He heareth your murmurings against the Lord. And what are we, that ye murmur against us? Verse 8. And Moses said, This shall be when the Lord shall give you in the evening flesh to eat, and in the morning bread to the full. For that the Lord heareth your murmurings which ye murmur against Him. And what are we? Your murmurings are not against us, but against the Lord. Promise of provisions. Exodus 16:4-5. Interestingly, God responded without any incident any indication that Moses or anyone else spoke to him. The people had complained that they lacked meat and bread. The Lord spoke to Moses immediately and graciously, addressing both those needs. First, the Lord said He would rain bread from heaven for them. He would freely give them a special bread that would satisfy them. In this, God was teaching them a concept that He was their ultimate provider, the one who from heaven gave them not necessarily what they expected, but what they really needed. While this bread was a gracious gift of God, it would also serve as a test to show whether or not they would obey the law He would give them. It was not just a test to see if they could follow instructions, but a test to see if their hearts were inclined to be His covenant people. This test would also involve faith. God would provide the bread by sending it each morning. The people would have to gather it from the ground according to the Lord's instructions. Later, the specifics were given, verses 16-26. They were to gather in Omer about 2 quarts for each person each day. On the 6th day, they were to gather twice that much, because there would be no bread given on the 7th day, the Sabbath. Only the bread gathered on the 6th day would last more than a day without spoiling. The people would have to trust God for their daily provision. They could not gather all they could and then store it up for the future. Words of rebuke. Exodus 16:6-8. Moses and Aaron then passed on to the people God's promise as well as His rebuke. That very evening they would be assured that it was the Lord Yahweh alone who had brought them out of Egypt. He was the one who had humiliated the so-called gods of Egypt, and he was the one who would provide something special that day to confirm his power and provision. In addition, the following morning they would see the glory of the Lord. Verse 7. God's glory often refers to the impressive physical manifestation of his presence. 16:10, 24:16, 33:18 through 22, 40:34 through 35. Here it seems to refer to the miracle of the bread that would appear on the ground in the morning. Moses told the people that the Lord had heard their murmurings and would give them this bread. The Lord would also answer their desire for meat that evening. This would apparently be for that day only, but the bread that would come the following morning would continue to be provided throughout the time the people were in the wilderness. Again, Moses said these heavenly gifts were in response to their murmurings. This did not justify their complaints as a means of manipulating God, but rather reminded them that God knew their hearts and their needs. Moses then turned to the real problem with the complaints of the people. They had spoken against Moses and Aaron, who were merely representatives of the Lord. Their complaints were actually against God. He, not Moses, had led them to this place. The Lord's provision. Verse 9. And Moses spake unto Aaron, say unto all the congregation of the children of Israel, come near before the Lord, for he have heard your murmurings. Verse 10. And it came to pass, as Aaron spake unto the whole congregation of the children of Israel, that they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. Verse 11. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, verse 12, I have heard the murmurings of the children of Israel. Speak unto them, saying, at even ye shall eat flesh, and in the morning ye shall be filled with bread, and ye shall know that I am the Lord your God. Verse 13. And it came to pass that at evening, the quails came up and covered the camp, and in the morning the dew lay round about the host. Verse 14. And when the dew that lay was gone up, behold, upon the face of the wilderness there lay a small round thing, as small as the hoar frost on the ground. Verse 15. And when the children of Israel saw it, they said one to another, it is manna, for they wist not what it was. And Moses said unto them, this is the bread which the Lord hath given you to eat. Divine glory. Exodus 16, 9 through 10. The Lord then instructed Moses to gather the people before him. This probably means they were to draw near to the pillar of cloud where the Lord's presence was manifested. The reason for gathering there was that the Lord had heard their murmurings. This suggests that what he was about to do was in some way a further rebuke of the people's attitudes. As the Israelites watched, the glory of the Lord appeared in the cloud. Verse 10. Perhaps this was a brilliant flash of light that came forth from the cloud. Whatever its nature, though, it must have been an awesome display of God's presence. Divine reassurance. Exodus 16, 11 through 12. The Lord then spoke to Moses again, telling him to reassure the people that in the evening they would eat meat, and in the morning they would have an abundance of bread. Again, the Lord mentioned that he had heard the murmurings of the children of Israel. This was a reminder of how gracious God was to provide for them what they wanted, even when they had complained about the circumstances into which he had led them. The divine provision would assure them he was the Lord their God. No one but the God who had miraculously delivered them from the powerful Egyptian Pharaoh could provide for them in this way. Provision of meat. Exodus 16:13. The meat God had promised arrived that evening in the form of quails. This is the only verse in the chapter where quails are mentioned. The emphasis is on the ongoing provision of the bread from heaven. However, there had to have been a massive number of these birds to feed the 2 million or more Israelites even the one meal. Quails migrate regularly between South Europe and Arabia across the Sinai Peninsula. God directed them to this place at this precise time. Nothing is said about how the quails were caught, but they roost on the ground or in the bushes when night comes. On a latter occasion, the Lord sent quails again, and apparently they flew so low to the ground that the Israelites could simply knock them down. Numbers 11:31 through 32. Provision of bread. Exodus 16:14 through 15. The promised bread arrived for the first time the next morning. When the dew had evaporated, the Israelites found a strange substance on the ground. The Bible describes it as a small round thing, as small as the hoarfrost on the ground. The description later in the chapter is more detailed. It is like a coriander seed, white, and the taste of it was like wafers made with honey, verse 31. This food was thin, white, and very tasty. While the people could describe its appearance, they initially did not know exactly what it was, verse 15. They called it manna. The meaning of this word has puzzled many scholars through the years, but it probably came from the Hebrew question, what is it? This was the people's initial response, and it became the given name of their new food. As the Israelites looked at the white, wafer-thin material, Moses explained, "This is the bread which the Lord have given you to eat." Perhaps the people were expecting something different, but this was what the Lord meant when he said he would rain bread from heaven for them, verse 4. The manna was used to make bread, Numbers 11:8. Not unexpectedly, some people ignored God's instructions regarding the manna and tried to keep some of it overnight when they were not supposed to, only to see it spoil. Others went out in search of the manna on the Sabbath, only to find none, Exodus 16 through 29. God's grace is indeed amazing. He lovingly provided the food his people craved, even though they had murmured against him and his chosen leaders. As God's miraculous provision of manna continued for the entire 40 years, Israel was in the wilderness. Exodus 16:35, Joshua 5:12. Perhaps we are more like the Israelites than we care to admit, quick to complain to God rather than praise him. Yet he remains ever so gracious, giving us good things we do not deserve. Questions. 1. When did the Israelites arrive at the wilderness of sin? 2. What did the people claim would have been better for them than being in the wilderness? 3. What charge did the Israelites bring against Moses and Aaron? 4. How did God address the people's complaint? 5. In what way would the bread from the heaven test the people? 6. In what sense had the people murmured against God himself and not just Moses and Aaron? 7. What assurance would the divine provision give the Israelites? 8. What kind of meat did God provide? 9. When did the bread arrive and what did the people call it? 10. How long did this blessing continue? This concludes the Sunday School lesson for Sunday, September 6, 2020. Thank you for listening. God bless.